talk to us first about Bryon Lake and what his legacy is at JPMorgan.
Yeah, look, he was brought in, to JPMorgan. They were, I think, 20th place in ETF assets. Now they're 7th. It is rare to go that high that fast. And he's an ETF guy. He really got his, he was brought up in Invesco and Power Shares before that. So he comes over. I give JPMorgan a lot of credit. They seem to give him a lot of freedom to build an ETF business. Not every asset manager is that lenient. But he really did a good job of doing both beta, passive, cheap beta, and active. And therefore, the people who are working at JPMorgan or other advisors have tools in their toolbox to use. And the active that he created, JEPI is probably the best example. They have the biggest active equity and the biggest active bond at JPST. #1 in both, hard to do, but they're both moderately priced, right? They're at a point where an advisor can go, you know, it's JPMorgan, got a cover call strategy, doing a lot of legwork, 35 beta, that's fair, right? This is different than the stock picker person who underperforms charging 1%. This is, JEPI to me is like the new playbook on active. Do a little legwork, beta adjust your fees, and you're gonna sell some stuff. So he really, I think, paved the way and wrote the playbook for how to sell active in the Vanguardian future.
Yeah, now, of course, JPMorgan is just a powerhouse in active ETFs, as Eric walked us through. But talk to us about the Goldman side of things, because it hasn't exactly been the same experience. And, of course, Bryon Lake, he's joining as partner, so he will have a wider aperture than just ETFs. But what could this mean for Goldman? Yeah,
they were one of my 3 guesses of where he was going, by the way. MFS was the other, because they just filed, they need somebody. And Invesco, I thought he might return home. But Goldman was a guess because they need help. They were really on the same page as JPMorgan for a couple years, about 8, 9 years ago. They came out with GSLC, which I thought was, again, a new version of active. 9 basis points for a multi-factor ETF, and the Goldman brand name, advisors were eating it up. And then something happened. They just plateaued. It's like they took their foot off the gas about 5 years ago. Now this year, for example, they're seeing outflows, and GSLC is seeing outflows. How can an equity ETF priced so cheaply with the Goldman name see outflows? The fish are jumping in the boat this year. Something's up over there, right? So I think Goldman, either they're looking for expanding other things besides ETFs, maybe, and this is something he could do on the side. I don't know exactly what his purview will be, but I can't imagine he's not going to be tempted to reboot that ETF business. But they've got good products. All they need is the passion and the marketing back to get the assets back in.
All right, so let's focus on the ETF side of the business that Bryon Lake might reignite over at Goldman Sachs. Could he replicate his playbook from JPMorgan at Goldman Sachs? Well,
Goldman already did that. Goldman has a JEPI knockoff, which is a total compliment, right? So they've already got Bryon Lake type ETFs over there. So all they need is passion and marketing and somebody in upper management to go do your thing. Sometimes at these shops, someone in upper management just like, wait a second, these ETFs cannibalize the mutual fund business, and they shut them down or they suppress them. So those are the things that need to happen for Goldman to rebuild its business. They have the products.